don't suppose y'all have any plans on getting some really cool Corona hats anytime soon? Just
Yeah. No, we do. We have a couple months ago we had some T-shirts done, and we need to do better swag. So yeah, you guys will be the first ones to get them when we do them. I promise.
sweet.
All right, well, we're live, so thank you for joining us today here every Monday at 2 o'clock for the Corona Geek Hangout, where we talk about everything mobile development and using the Corona SDK. Today we've got a special guest in the studio, David Rangel from Corona Labs. Hey, David.
Hi, everyone.
David is the COO of Corona Labs, so we're going to have a good discussion with him today about marketing mobile apps. Also in the studio we've got Dr. Brian Burton, author of the book, the book, multiple books on building, using Corona, developing with Corona. And then we've also got Toff Ward in studio with us today, who is a longtime developer and big Gnome hunter. And then, of course, I'm Charles McKeever. I'm also a longtime developer and Corona nut. So we're going to talk today with David about marketing mobile apps. So, David, tell us all about it.
What a dump. Oh.
What a dump. Wow.
Don't start me. Now it's me talking for the next hour nonstop.
That's right. Go. So no. First of all, I've got a question here, kind of ease us into it, and I kind of want to know what does the COO of Corona Labs do? What's your like your role there at Corona Labs? Give me the elevator pitch on that. I don't get exactly what everybody's doing. So help me out.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So today, since we're still a pretty small company, we don't have many layers or anything. So basically today it's as easy as there's the engineers, and then there's the people that are not coding and need to somehow justify themselves being there. I'm like, and there's only 3 of us in that latter category. And so on the engineering side, there's Walter, who's still very much focused on technology. He still does a lot of coding. He probably mentioned that to you guys last time, and all the rest of the engineering team. Besides that, there is Reiko, who is in charge of answering a lot of our customer support emails and all the tickets that come in. She makes sure it gets to the right person. There is Inna, who we brought on a few months ago, and she helps me with PR and some marketing. And there's me. So anything on the business side at Corona, anything that isn't coding and pushing code in and that stuff, it is right now what we're calling operations, because I'm the chief operating officer. So that includes making sure the website is up and has the right content. That includes some partnerships that we've worked on in the past that we're working on for the future. That includes any sort of marketing things we do. That includes even actually some of the tech support issues and making sure that takes place. So anything that isn't coding falls under my umbrella right now. So you're right. It's not like we're a big company that has these big operations to speak of, but there is a lot going on that we need to take care of that isn't coding, and that's all me.
Okay, I got you. So you kind of, I guess I think of it as sort of a manager, which maybe be a lesser word than COO, but the guy that keeps everything flowing. The guy that goes,
yeah.
He's not supposed to be any one particular thing. He just make sure that everything stays fluid.
I just have to make sure that everything is somewhat moving along, because there's always things going on and issues, but I'm just the one who has to try to fix things and make sure everything is moving.
Okay, so then, so you say you do a lot of stuff, the marketing side of things too, as well.
Yeah, so we do lots of. I mean, we're trying to do more and more, and we're ramping up there. But marketing for Corona, that includes our website, right? Having the right content on our website, and we can always do a better job. But so that's one thing. We're actually going to start getting more active with events over the next few months. So traditionally, since we're so small and we don't have enough bandwidth, we haven't been present at a lot of the industry conferences and stuff. And that's going to start to change. So we're going to have more of a presence in conferences going forward. That's also marketing. Partnerships, we've done a couple partnerships with third-party companies. Walter may have mentioned this idea of a plugin framework. We're getting closer. And so once that is done, we're going to go out and do more partnerships with third parties that can add functionality to Corona developers. What else falls under marketing? I mean, just our internal optimization. When we think about the business, we obviously have a bunch of people coming to our website, converting hopefully into registered users that download the product, converting into activated trial users, converting into subscribers, and hopefully they publish an app. And so that's a whole sort of funnel that we think about, and that's how we think about our business. We want to get as many people in the top of the funnel and then keep them going down all the way to subscribe and putting out an app and renewing their subscription 1 year later. And so thinking about that and keeping that and optimizing that is also part of marketing. It's sort of internal-facing marketing, but it's part of marketing.
Okay, so there's probably a few stages of app developer, right? There's the people who come in who are brand new, who like you said, who have just signed up, have their SDK and can go and start developing apps. And then there's the people who are a little more, they've already got some apps out there. They're trying to, they're more focused on app discovery than anything else. They've already published, but now they want to. So let's talk about then the new guys like myself. What's the biggest challenge that new developers face? Once we've got the SDK, once we're kind of there, where should we focus our attention?
Well, so yeah, that's a good question. That actually gets to the main point that I try to make when I talk about this, and this applies primarily to the smaller independent developers, but also smaller studios. You've got big companies, and we've got a few big studios now using Corona, and there this doesn't apply, because there you've got a team of developers and engineers doing their game or their app, and they don't have to worry about the marketing, right? They just someone just figured out what app they're going to build it, and someone else is thinking about the marketing. But for anyone that's smaller, could be a small indie guy, could be a small studio, they have to think about it because there's no one else to do the marketing for them, right? And now we're talking about the developer doing marketing for their apps. The biggest mistake I think people make there, and this is based on me seeing and talking to a bunch of developers over the last almost 2 years now that I've been involved in some way with Corona, is that they don't think of marketing until the last second, right? If you take it to the extreme, there's some guys that say, my app is done, I'm going to publish it next week, or even, I'm publishing it now. Okay, now what do I do for marketing? And that's the extreme, and that's the worst thing. There's some guys that are a little more forward-looking and say, okay, I'm getting close. It's like I'm 2 or 3 weeks out. What can I start doing now? But I think that's actually still a mistake. I really think that what developers should do is start thinking about how they're going to market their apps and the implications that has from the very, very beginning. So from the moment they say, hey, I think I'm going to do an app, I think there's a lot of things you can start thinking of that will impact your marketing after you launch, but that will have a big impact on what you build. Even though a lot of developers think of just building an app as a purely technical exercise and that's it, a lot of what you build into an app can be influenced by what you think about marketing, and then will definitely have an impact afterwards on how well your app does.
Yeah, you could build in sharing via Facebook, right? I mean that's a marketing channel, but if you don't build that in from the beginning, it could be a hard thing to add at the end.
It could be a hard thing to add, and that's probably one of the easier things to do. I think the biggest one that I don't see a lot of indie guys taking full advantage of is analytics. And analytics has to be built in early and has to be baked into how the app works, because optimally you want to track. It's not just about getting data on how many sessions happened and how long the sessions were. That's the easy stuff with analytics, but that's just the very kind of surface. With analytics, optimally, what you want to do is you want to start tracking events. So you can do stuff like saying, okay, 1,000 people downloaded my app, but 80% of them didn't get past the tutorial, or didn't get past level 2, or didn't use this functionality. And that's when you can really start getting more value out of the analytics and making decisions based on it. So analytics is another one, and another one is push notifications. Push notifications is something that you want to build in early to some degree. The notification can be triggered by different things depending on what the app does, but it gives you a really great vehicle to target the end users after they download you and keep them engaged and do things like that.
Yeah, I noticed Little Generals, which is a Corona app that you guys featured on Corona Labs. That that app is on my iPad, and if I leave my iPad for a couple of days and don't mess with it, it'll come back and give me push notifications to let me know that, hey, you've got some extra war bucks, or you can come back and play the game.
Right. And look, you may ignore it half of the time or 80% of the time, but once in a while it's going to get you, and it'll get you to come back into the game, and it's not something you would have done otherwise. And as long as developers don't make it too spammy, and I think there is a danger of that, right? You have to be careful. You don't want to make people mad and have them turn off your notifications. But as long as you make it reasonable and actually add some sort of value so that people say, oh, yeah, that's a good notification. Thank you for doing it. I'm going to go in. Then I think it's great. Another example that I actually use and I think is very effective, and not just for those types of apps, but is like if you have a language learning app. I have a couple on my phone, and a great scenario for it is, here's a new word of the day for you to learn how to say a new word in whatever language you're learning. Or, hey, we just added a new exercise or something. So that's a very, the scenario fits in very well with what you want to do with the app, and so you take it, you like it. It actually adds value, and that's the best possible scenario.
Okay. So from an...
Now,
oh, go ahead, David. Brian.
Yeah. Now, David, you're talking about analytics. Of course, we do have the issue that people need to be thinking about if they're making apps specifically targeting children, because there's been a lot of stir up about what kind of analytics are you keeping for an app that's targeted for children. General app analytics, nobody's going to have a problem with, but if you got stuff that's specifically targeting children, then people are going to get worried. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, or
no?
Or is that enough?
No, it's a good question, actually, and I don't know enough right now. I have had conversations about that with different people, and I know that some people have said, hey, I can't use Flurry because of that specific situation. To tell you the truth, and I should know this better, I've had it in the back of my mind, I don't know what actual solution is out there, if any, where a child, an educational app or kids app developer can use specific analytics that are, let's say, kosher for a kids app. I don't know. There must be a solution. I just don't know offhand. But you're right. I do know it's
a brand new problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is brand new. I mean, we're just now starting to deal with it. We're dealing with the legalese that's coming out from it. You know that depending on who becomes elected in Congress, somebody's going to bring this up as a coffee shop mod type situation, that people are tracking information.
Yeah, and exactly. Actually, just last week I was talking on the phone with Scott, and I'm blanking on his last name for now, but he manages the Parents with Apps forum, and they have a lot of educational and kids apps developers on that forum, and he was telling me that they're starting to do some work that could be called lobbying, because they have to think about what's going to happen, right? So I think you're right. It's still just getting figured out. I don't know, like, if someone came to us today and said, hey, what can I do about analytics for kids apps? I actually don't know the answer, and I'll look into it. I don't know if there is a good answer right now. So you're absolutely right. But for non-kids apps, yeah, it's usually it's a non-issue.
So as someone's new to this whole conversation, is Flurry the only option that we have? I mean, I know that you guys integrate with Flurry.
Yeah, so we've had Flurry in there in Corona for a while now. Technically, that is the only option there right now. That will change in a not too distant future with these plugins. Just going back to that, it's a little off topic, but what we want to do with the plugin framework is open it up in a way that is scalable for us, because previously we just couldn't do it. Open it up to all sorts of third-party functionality as appropriate and as necessary as we can do partnerships, etc. And I think one of the things we'll want to do is add other analytics options. Now, having said that, Flurry is, for the normal indie developer, Flurry is a fine solution because it's free, it's relatively easy, and it's relatively capable. So it's not the most capable solution out there, but the most capable solution out there, you're going to end up paying a certain amount every month. And that, for an indie developer that's just starting out, that might not be what they want to do. Flurry is free and does a lot of stuff, so it's a good solution.
Free is good.
Yeah. I mean, really, you have to be a pretty serious developer and be making some decent money before you're willing to pay a significant amount of money for analytics, right? And we hope that a lot of guys get there, but not everyone does. And so in the meantime, Flurry is a pretty good solution.
Okay. So you mentioned analytics, push notifications. We talked a little bit about Facebook. What else? What other things are there that we should be spending time on?
So so let me step back a second, and one of the things right now we're talking about what we can build into the app, right? So we're talking about technical things because these are features you're building in, right? But there's actually things you can do before then, before you're even building the app, that will help you with marketing later on. And it's also something that I think I've seen people not do that much. So let me just mention those very quickly. I think one very interesting thing that developers can do as they get ready to start building their app is set up a basic website for it. That's fairly simple. A lot of guys do it. But what I've seen work for some people is start writing a blog about it. Like, put a little bit of thought into writing sort of like a diary of your development of your app or a blog. And I think it can help in 2 or 3 ways. One is I've found in the past that when people write about what they're doing and explain it in a good way through the blog to an audience as the audience grows, I think it helps them think more clearly, right? And it sort of helps them think through things. So that's one. But more importantly, I think you start developing an audience that will be a good audience for your app once you release it down the road. Might not be huge, but it's something, right? Every little bit counts for an indie developer. And the third thing is, if you post about interesting stuff, so if you're doing an interesting app and you're going to face interesting problems for other mobile developers, and you write about how you face them, how you solve them, etc., other developers love that stuff. All the time, if you go on Hacker News and other places, you see all these links that rank really highly to blogs from developers about how they did X, Y, or Z, right? And I think getting that going can only be good for your app once it launches, and getting a following and getting yourself known in the industry. So I just don't see much downside in doing that, and I don't think it's something that a lot of developers do. So just setting up that early presence and then working on it. But yeah, once you start building, so we talked about the social media sharing, putting in Facebook and all that stuff. We talked about analytics. We talked about push notifications. There's a couple other things that I think people can add into the app. One is a simple, not very intrusive request for ratings. You may have seen it. Once in a while, you'll launch an app and a thing will come up and it will say, hey, if you like this app, can you rate me in the App Store? And if you say yes, it takes you to that page, right? That, again, you don't want to spam people, you don't want to be annoying, but every little bit of good ratings counts. And if you did a good job with the app and people are well disposed towards it and they click through and they give you a good rating, that's a great thing, right?
Now, do you recommend what do you call that? Incentivizing the rating? So, like, if you rate us and unlock some stars or something.
You could do it. I wouldn't even say that's necessary. I literally think that on the third launch, saying, hey, third time this person launches, show them the little window, and that's it. Even that is enough. It's not a big technical thing to do. You'll get a low conversion rate. Probably, I don't know, 5% of people will click through and say yes, maybe less. But still, it's something. If you want to make it incentivized, you could try. I don't know. I don't think that's an issue with Apple or anything. I don't think it's an issue nowadays. I don't see it becoming an issue. I guess it's one of those things that you should think about a little bit before you do, and you're making sure you're doing it the right way, right?
Yeah, I've seen it implemented well, and it's actually gotten me to respond before, because sometimes you say you see the rating thing and everybody wants you to rate, so I'm kind of like, oh yeah, I'll do that later, or whatever. This one app in particular that I can think of, I can't remember the name at the moment, but he gave me extra assets in the game, and it was one of these things that they already gave me a call to action to rate the app, but there was a selfish benefit to it. All the time I get surveys from places. You stayed at a hotel, you went to a whatever, and they're all like, give me your feedback, give me your give me, and nobody's ever like, and we'll give you a coupon, or we'll give you a discount, or we'll give you a cookie. Yeah, I'm like, everybody wants your feedback, but nobody wants to give you anything. So I just wonder if that it seems like a natural fit.
I think it'd be a good thing to do if you can do it well. If it's a good fit with how the app works, I don't see why not. And like I said, I don't think that's frowned upon. Is it outlandish to think that down the road Apple could penalize people that give some incentive for reviewing? I guess it could happen. I don't think it will, but it could. That's the only reason I'm saying, like, hey, just be a little careful.
I've been doing student reviews now for 15 years, and we have learned bring donuts in on the day of reviews.
So that's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay, but definitely regardless, do ask for ratings. Go ahead and just be bold enough to ask.
Yeah, in a non-spammy way. Don't do it every time they launch, but just do it once in a while. I think it's worth it. You'll get a few ratings out of it. Every little rating in the app stores, you guys probably know, helps. If you're looking at an app that has no ratings or bad ratings versus one that has even 5 good ratings, it makes a difference, right? The other thing, and this is, some people don't like this, and you have to do it in the right way too, but it can be pretty effective, is collecting people's email address. So just maybe having in the credits page or somewhere in the settings page or somewhere saying, hey, if you want more info on the app or news about our company or hear when other similar apps come out, give us your email address. We'll put you on our email list. We're not going to spam you. We're going to send you an email maybe once a month with news. Very, very, very few mobile developers do that. But if you take a step back from mobile for a second and look at other areas of technology and e-commerce, we all know that email marketing is super, super powerful, right? It can be abused, and many people get a lot of email. But there's a reason so many companies send you emails. It works, right? Yeah. And doing it well is a good thing. So there's no reason a mobile developer couldn't say, hey, in addition to everything I'm doing in my app, I'm going to build up an email list of the people that like my app. By definition, they are people that are really well disposed towards you and your app and your company. They're great customers. And what better way to market your next app than when you come out with it, having a built-in a list you built of, I don't know, even if it's a few dozen, a few hundred people with their email address, you can blast an email out to and say, hey, my new app is out, please try it, right? Those are going to convert very highly. So it's a simple thing to do, and I think it could be pretty effective, but yet very few people do it.
Yeah, because what you're talking about there is cost of acquisition, I guess. Getting someone there and then not being able to talk to them would be a really sad day.
It is, right? I mean, mobile apps get a users, and if you didn't build in push notifications, you didn't ask for their emails, you didn't even ask them for a rating. It's like having these customers, these users that you can never again talk to.
Yeah, the one-time sell.
It's a one-time sell, and like, who knows what's going to happen? And if you don't have analytics, you don't even know what they liked and didn't like, or what they used. I mean, in the real world, in a retail store, in a bricks and mortar store or anything, you would never think of doing that, right? It's like if someone walks into the store and you're just like, don't even pay attention, you're blindfolded, you don't ask them what they want, you don't do anything. No, that's not the way it works. You like ask them, you try to get them, you try to give them some. That's what you should think of in your mobile app, and having all the right avenues and channels to get this information, it has to be thought of from the very beginning.
Okay, so those are some things that are in the app, and I think that's a good list. You mentioned things before that they could do either outside of the app or early on in the process. So. What other things like that? I mean, I liked where you were going with the blog, building that fan base, getting people kind of invested. I mean, especially if people have either left comments on your site or given you suggestions for things, they're kind of invested in the process. They're more likely to buy your app. So what else?
Yeah, exactly. They're more likely to buy your app and then tell their friends too. So that stuff is like the setting up a presence and doing a blog and all that stuff is sort of like the setup, I'll call it. The other stuff we talked about is like as you're building your app, is building all those things in. I think then, once you've done that, if you've done that well, then the next step is you get to, well, let's call it the pre-launch. Okay, so you're getting close. Let's say you're 3 weeks away from launching. The app looks like it's coming together. Then you can start doing other marketing stuff. And this is what most people think of when you talk about app marketing, right? This is like, okay, this is what they think of. So although not everything here. So the first thing I'll mention here is making sure you have the best possible icon you can, right? Whether you design it yourself, if you have some talent, whether you outsource it, but just making sure that it's a very nice, attractive, professional-looking icon is important, right? People browsing the App Store, they see an app and it has a crappy icon, you just reduce your chances of getting that download significantly. So have a nice icon. The next thing is the description. So put some real thought into what the description of the app is, right? For two reasons. One is people don't read a lot. People don't like reading a ton. So what they're going to do is they're going to read the first sentence or two and then scan, right? So somehow you have to get across the right things. And two, make sure you have the right keywords in there, because as for the last 10 years everyone's been worried about SEO and Google has to index me and I have to use the right keywords and whatever. Now it's the same game in the App Store. People may go into the App Store and look for an app for, elections or whatever's topical, or they want to lose weight, and so they may say weight loss or something. Well, you have to make sure you have the right keywords in there, right? And do a little bit of research and see what other similar apps are you using, how they're describing themselves, what keywords they might use, because the last thing you want is have an app that is good, but no one's finding it because you didn't include any good keywords in the description. So you have to think about that. Screenshots. As you guys know, the App Store has those little screenshots along the bottom. Making sure they're nice screenshots, that they depict what your game does, a couple of nice things. Interestingly, if you look at what a lot of sophisticated studios are doing, they don't put just pure screenshots there anymore, right? They have a screenshot and overlaid on it, they have other sort of graphics and like letters, words saying what you can do. Sort of like explaining that screenshot that they're sort of showing you in smaller size. I don't know why that works. It sort of makes intuitive sense, I guess. But the fact that all the big studios are doing it leads me to believe that it probably works. They've probably tested it. And
somebody did research.
Right. I mean, those guys A/B test the hell out of everything they can A/B test, right?
Right.
So I would say that seems like a good thing to do. Don't just put a straight-up screenshot, especially if it's something that's not that clear. Put a screenshot inside of some other graphics and say, build castles with your friends or something. That's what they do. So giving some real thought to that and spending some time on it. And then the trailer. If you on your website, on Facebook, etc., you link people to a video on YouTube, people like that. Very often people won't read a couple paragraphs, but they'll spend 90 seconds looking at a video, right? So, put a little bit of time into it and have a decent video. So those sort of like the basics, just to get you ready to launch. A few other things I would say is, and again, this is what people usually think of when they're getting ready to launch is, put together a sort of a media kit. It can be as easy as a press release that explains what your app does, tells a little bit about your company, the logos for the game and your company, a couple paragraphs also that easily describe certain aspects of the game or the app. The idea with a media kit is that if someone gets interested in your app, someone being a blogger, an app reviewer, a journalist, they can come to your site, they can click on that, and very easily within a minute, they'll have the right information they may need if they want to write about your app. Right? The last thing you want is someone said, oh, interesting app. I may review it, I may write about it, but I can't find this logo, I can't find the screenshot, I can't find what it's about, it's a pain in the ass. That's not what you want. You want them to be, oh great, he gave me all the info I need, done. I'm going to go write about it. So that's the idea behind a media kit. And then clearly just reach out to a bunch of people. Just reach out to a bunch of app review sites, even to local media. If you have a special angle, even to national media. at that point, it's just a game of numbers. It's just how many emails are you going to send out, refine the pitch a little bit, try to make it catchy, and just send people a bunch of emails, and a small percentage, if any, will respond. But that's just the way it is, right? That's just the game. But going through that process is important.
Now, I know when it comes to, because this sounds a lot like trying to get in front of a reporter. Like there's media outlets, there's places where you can go to spread the word. So you kind of want to create an announcement that has some sort of benefit to that person, so that they make it easy for them to promote you. So are there any tips there that you can suggest, and are there any sites in particular that somebody should be focusing on? I mean, there's a whole, like you just said, there's a whole world of opportunities, but where's the for the top 5 that you could get the most bang for your effort?
I wish it were that easy, and I just don't think it is. It's so noisy out there now that it's hard, because if you go for the bigger app review sites, they just get more volume too.
So you think it's better to go for smaller?
I think it's better to go for all of them. It's not the best answer, but like I said, it's a numbers game. You should just go for all of them. You literally have to set aside a bunch of hours and say, I'm going to email this big list of people, right? And if possible, if there's some angle I can use, I'm going to customize the message a little bit depending on what they do or who they are. But then beyond that, it is just sending it to as many people as you can. Now, everyone has limited amounts of time. You can't send it to 1 million people. I mean, I would say you should try to send it to the top. You should try to send it to the top 50 app review sites. Period. Just send them. And depending on what your app is about, you should definitely do some little research and say, okay, are there any app review sites, blogs, local journalists that have any specific interest into what this app is about, right? You may have an angle based on the topic. You may have an angle based on the target market, right? It could be an app for kids about politics. I don't know, right? Perfect. Right now is the election. A lot of people might be receptive to it. If you have a special angle, because this is for kids to learn about elections, excellent. Some people might pick it up, and you want to highlight that. If it's just a random game, like just a Angry Birds type game, then there's less of an angle. At that point, it's just much more of a, hey, look at my game. It's beautiful graphics. That's the angle. It's like never before seen beautiful graphics. I don't know. You just have to try to find an angle, and with some, it's easier than others. That's just the way it is.
Okay. So is there not a service that you can go out to and just give them your credit card and say, promote me?
Not really. I mean, you can... Actually, that's not true. That's not true. You can do one of these free app of the day type services.
Okay.
And there's a fair number of them now, but they will cost you money. And depending on how big they are, it could be a pretty significant amount of money. Okay. So that's not the answer for an indie guy, right? Zynga or EA, they'll go out and they'll buy up all the inventory they can on these apps, and they'll get tens of thousands of downloads that day. But it's just not reasonable for anyone smaller than a mid-sized studio. So that's why I almost say like, nah, it just doesn't happen that way. For the smaller guys, it's just the work they put in getting the word out.
So what about banner ads in apps? I mean, is that something that they should avoid then? Is it going to be too expensive?
No, it doesn't have to be too expensive. I mean, you just have to be aware that the conversion rate's not going to be that great.
Okay.
But so here's another thing that I haven't gotten to, and we should have touched on it before when you were building things into your app. So another thing you can build into your app is a way to cross-promote with other apps, right? So you're not just blanketing, you're not just buying a media campaign for banners on some random apps out there, and that could work. If you have a little bit of money to spend, you can experiment. But a better way to do that is to say, okay, my app is about X, right? What are other apps out there that are, they can't be the most popular app because they're not going to want to do it with a new guy. But what are other apps out there that are comparable, right? Because they're complementary in terms of the topic, because they're complementary in terms of the target market. And go talk to them and say, hey, why don't we cross-promote each other, right? You've got a bunch of end users using your app that like politics, let's say. I've got a great app on politics. I have some users. I'm looking for others. Let's cross-promote our apps. But that's not just a generic banner campaign. It's a very targeted, I'm going to go to other developers that have similar apps to mine, and we're going to cross-promote each other. And that actually, for the people that do it well, works really, really well. A lot of people have gotten great results out of that because the conversion rates are so much higher. Because in theory, it's a complementary audience or app or whatever it is. And if you're doing cross-promotion with another developer or two, you're not necessarily putting out money out of pocket, right? You're just agreeing to exchange each other's users. So yeah, sure, you're foregoing some of your inventory if you're serving ads and making less money, but you may not care. It's more about getting users to come in. Right. So putting in that mechanism for cross-promotion, I think, is something that could be important if you can find the right people to do it with.
Yeah, I know that YouTubers talk about that, and they talk about it from the standpoint of if you have strong skills in a certain area and then somebody else doesn't, then you can offer that up to them and say, hey, let's collaborate and create something. So this is, it makes sense that you would kind of, and they're trying to compete for people's attention as well, but in that space it works real well because we're all looking for the things that we like. We're looking for that next, like you said, that next app that's kind of similar that we like. So that makes sense.
Exactly.
I like
so I think it's something pretty powerful.
You think about it, when you're building your apps, the best time to have a section devoted to the, hey, apps I like or apps I use. But if you don't have that, now you're adding onto something at the end and going, oh, well, the guy just asked me to this. I'll just tack that on to the end. But you're right. No, I totally agree. You think about it up front and you build it in up front. Well, when it happens, you just kind of go, yes, absolutely. Here you go. Done.
Exactly. Exactly.
Now,
and related to that, oh, sorry, Charles, let me say one quick thing.
Yeah.
Related to that is thinking a little bit ahead as well and building in the ability to easily, to Toff's point right now, easily do your own house ads so that when you do your second app, this goes back to what we said before. You have all these users, hopefully, in your apps, and you didn't build in ways to reach out to them and get them engaged. Well, one easy way is saying, hey, guys, you're users of my first app. My second app is out. So here's some, tasteful, reasonable banner ads in my old app for my new app. That's a fantastic thing to do. And a lot of people don't build that in or don't think about it till it's just too late, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and it's a good point because I have discovered other apps inside of the app that I just downloaded, and then their own apps, that developer's own apps, and I didn't realize that. Oh, you did. I didn't realize you did that, as well. That's great.
Exactly.
And so you're saying they'll build in your own, not just mention it on a screen, but actually build in your own ad system. Is that what you're saying?
Something simple, something that you can say, hey, if there's a file here on some server, display it. And I know that when I come out with my next app, I'm going to put a little banner there for my next app. Something like that, right?
Gotcha.
There's companies out there that make that easier for you. We have some plans in that area as well, although I can't really say much about that right now. But after all, our job is to make all these things as easy for developers as possible. But today, it wouldn't be too hard for someone to do it on their own.
Okay. So now, so let's move then to Corona Labs, then, and talk about how you guys promote developers. Because I know you do app promotions and things like that on Corona Labs. Is that correct?
Yes. So today, there's some things we can do, and we're trying to figure out what other things we could do. The basic thing we do today is we have our showcase. If you go to our website and you go to community, and then you'll see the showcase. It's not, the showcase got built a couple years ago. It's not a great piece of technology by this point. We definitely need to fix it up a little bit, and we will get there. It just hasn't been, we haven't been able to get to it yet, but we will. But that's one way. So we give you a presence for your app. And like we've said before, every little bit helps, right? Just from an SEO perspective and just having something out there, every little bit helps. So we give you a little bit of a presence. And then the second thing we do is every week we select an app of the week where one of the noteworthy apps that we saw sometime in the last few weeks, we just say, hey, this is the app of the week. We like it because of these reasons. And here you go. And we do a blog post about it. we also try to work with any number of developers, and unfortunately, we can't work with everyone. We have so many developers all doing a bunch of apps that it's just physically impossible for us to, specifically help every single one out. But we try to, wherever we can, we try to develop some relationships with app review sites, and so wherever we can, we try to say, hey, we're going to recommend you to these couple of app review sites, or we're going to mention that you here or there, and just try to help developers get their apps reviewed. Those are the main things we do right now. We are trying to come up with more structured and better ways of just helping our developers overall.
Well, so if I wanted to come to Corona Labs and say, hey guys, would you feature my app? What are the things that I could do to help that process along? Like you talked about before, the media kit, all that kind of stuff like that. Is there something specific that I could do to make that, workable?
Yeah, so there's two specific things we ask for. One is submit it to the showcase, and the second thing is put up our badge that says Built with Corona SDK on your site. Those are the two things we ask for you to do. And then your app becomes eligible for App of the Week and whatever other things we can help out with.
Okay.
So that's fairly straightforward. We are trying to close a couple more partnerships to give some benefits to developers. It's tough with app review sites because they're also inundated with requests that they don't need. It's not like they don't necessarily need more. So we're trying to figure what things we could do to specifically help Corona developers. But there's a few things still in the works. But those are the basics of what we do today.
Okay. Now, you also have a Corona developer program. So this is switching gears just a little bit. You talked earlier about getting people together and kind of collaborating or developers working together. I know there's the Corona Ambassador program, so tell us, if you would, tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, that is definitely one of the things we're going to put a lot more emphasis into the next couple months. So what the Ambassador program is today, we put out a call a few months ago, and we said, hey, we have this program. We're gonna have Corona ambassadors around the world. If you're a Corona developer with a reasonable amount of experience, a couple of apps or more published, and you like Corona and you'd like to help us spread the word, please let us know. And we've gotten a bunch of applicants. Of many of those that have applied, I've talked to a bunch of them, and the ones that we've accepted into the program, there's about 60 to 70 right now. I forget the exact number. I think it's like 65, all over the world. I've personally talked to all of them on Skype or on the phone. They're all great people, very passionate about Corona, want to help us spread the word. And that's the general idea around the program. We also, for them doing that, we also want to help them benefit from being in the program. And that can happen in any number of ways. So if the ambassador is is an indie developer, well, he benefits from getting a community going and meeting other developers so they can bounce ideas off of each other and things like that. We have other ambassadors that are studios. They own a small studio. What they want to do is meet other Corona developers so they can potentially recruit them because they're looking for developers, right? So that's the benefit to them. And then we've got other guys that just love Corona and just love talking about it. So our goal is to benefit the ambassador at the same time that we spread the word about Corona and organize a community in that geographic area, set up a group, etc. The program has so far probably suffered in terms of a little bit of lack of attention, and that's just because, like I mentioned at the beginning, it's really just me. But we are hiring people right now, and one of the positions we're going to hire for is a developer relations person, developer evangelist, or two, and one of their main duties is going to be to own and manage the ambassador program and grow it. So that's going to get a lot more attention hopefully pretty soon. And that's our idea, is just build communities of Corona developers all over the world. And today we have ambassadors, a bunch of ambassadors in the U.S., all over the country. We have ambassador in the Philippines, ambassadors in Switzerland, in Japan, Indonesia, all over the place. It's really amazing. We have these guys all over the place that love talking about Corona and setting up groups and getting people to talk about it. So we're very, very excited.
Yeah, I think that's a great program and a great place for people to meet each other, like you say, and share ideas. So, okay, so tell us what's in store for Corona Labs in 2013. What's the at the what's the one thing that you'd like to see happen for Corona Labs in next year?
We're going to start growing more aggressively.
Okay.
Today, I think our main problem is that we haven't had the number of people to do all the things that we want to do. And that's going to change pretty soon. Both from an engineering standpoint to start building out even more features, potentially cover more platforms, but also on the business and marketing side to spread the word even more through things like the ambassador program and other things like that.
Okay.
So I think 2013 we want it to be the year where we go from, we're a startup. We'll be a startup for a while still, but we're a smallish startup right now. We want to get to where we're starting to be a bigger company, like a very significant company a year from now.
Gotcha. Okay, very nice. Yeah. All right, Brian, you got any questions you want to throw out there? I know you're.
No, I'm just so excited about what's coming and what's, I do have one question, David. You've talked about your ambassador evangelist that you're looking for. We've got a fair number of people viewing this. Why don't you tell what you're looking for specifically for?
Yeah, actually, that's a great idea, Brian. Absolutely. So we're looking for a person that is technical. We definitely want someone that is technical enough. They don't have to be a hardcore engineer, but they need to be technical enough that they can talk about Corona in its technical aspects to a group of people, right? So they can go into details on, hey, this is how in-app purchases works, and give a presentation on in-app purchases. Or this is how the physics engine works, and give a 45-minute presentation on the basic aspects of physics. So they need to be technical enough for that. They need to, at the same time, be a person that is very social, because we want them out there talking with developers, small indie developers and also developers at larger studios. But we want them to be out there meeting with developers and understanding what they do and what they need and telling them about Corona and all that stuff. So someone who's social, someone who's reasonably technical, someone who is comfortable whipping up those presentations and saying, hey, I think we need to talk more about X, whatever that is, in-app purchases, physics, whatever. Let me whip up a presentation and send it out to ambassadors, or I'm going to use it at the meetup next week, or I'm going to use it at the conference I'm speaking in Atlanta a month from now, whatever it is. And then also someone who's well organized and structured, because there's things like the ambassador program, which hopefully they will own. And so it'll be their job to say, okay, we have 60 ambassadors. We need to give them the right information and incentives and materials that they need to start organizing these groups in their areas, and get them to do it. And then I'm going to go out there and talk to them and speak at the initial one or one of their meetups. And hey, I'm going to partner with our ambassador in the New York City area to try to reach out to some of the universities and do this and the other, and sort of structured outreach. So someone who can help us with that, those sets of things: social, reasonably technical, structured so that we can get these programs going. That's sort of the person we're looking for. And obviously, if they are a longtime Corona user, they love the platform, they like telling people about it, perfect. That's exactly what we want.
Awesome.
Actually, on that note, tell me about the culture. We talked to Walter, and he was writing a lot of the stuff about the jobs and things like that, and he's very passionate about what he does. But I always like to know a little bit more about what's really going on at the company. I mean, slave driving, that kind of. Just tell me about the culture. I mean, do you all hang out? Do you have cinder blocks with doors on it? Do you have? What's the culture up there, Corona like?
I characterize it as pretty fun and collegial. I mean, like I mentioned, it's a super flat organization right now, and it's going to be like that for a while, right? One of the important things that we make sure that everyone's aware of, and I think everyone is aware of, is that everyone has to pitch in everywhere, right? Everyone from Walter down to the newest hire it has to be able to, at a moment's notice, help out with whatever comes up, and no exceptions. And so I think that has meant that gives us a feel here internally of just a very collegial, flat, and we're all friends. We all hang out a little bit. Hang out when we're in the office. It doesn't feel at all like a company. I mean, I think people like coming here. And then at the same time, we are super, super lean. The company has been, I don't know if Walter talked about this, but the company has been extremely capital efficient over the last few years, which I think is a good thing. Especially when you hear about all these Silicon Valley startups raising millions and millions and millions of dollars when it's just an idea. I mean, this company has been around now for 4 years, really started taking off more in the last 1.5 to 2 years, and has grown to where we are right now, having raised only $1.5 million, which by Silicon Valley standards is less than peanuts, right? So we have been extremely, extremely lean, and that's our mindset. Like we're not about paying huge amounts of money on these fancy offices or anything like that. It's actually quite the opposite. In fact, I will say, perhaps I shouldn't, but I think it's hurt us. I think it's starting to hurt us, right? That is why I was telling you guys that now this year is when we have to start, and we plan on starting to get more aggressive in terms of our presence at industry events, in terms of growing the staff, etc. Because we have to grow more aggressively now based on where we are.
But you've got the base. You've got the I hear what you're saying. Maybe from a budgetary standpoint or dollar signs, but you guys have a solid, tight foundation from which to launch from.
Right. No, and that's why we're very, very excited and very optimistic, because there's not that many companies, and literally there's very few companies that get to this developer base, period. Let alone, forget about the amount of capital or any of that stuff. Just that's irrelevant. There's very few companies that get to this level of a developer base, period. We have that already, right? So now we just have to grow on that and just make sure that we keep on giving our developers the functionality they need.
I don't know if you ever heard the story of Robert Rodriguez, the director for Spy Kids. I
know of him, but I don't know the story.
So basically what he did was, his whole thing was, somebody came to him and said, "Hey, I really like my kids really like Dust to Dawn," or what was it? Was that what it was called, Dust to Dawn? The one with the zombie, the zombie bar sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh, great! How old are your kids?" And he was thinking they're like they're 16, 17, whatever. And they're like, "Oh, they're like 9." And he was just appalled because here's these kids watching these zombies being blown apart and all this other stuff. And so he sat down and he said, "Well, how can I come up with a film, action-based, that kids will watch, because that's really all they're into, is they're really into the action." And then from that, he got the idea of Spy Kids. But he didn't want to make it just a traditional movie, throw a bunch of cash at it, a bunch of special effects and things like that. So what he said was, how can we... He said, I woke up every morning trying to figure out how not to spend the money that was being thrown at me. And so it was things like, how can we just make, like a ball of rubber bands interesting? How can we do things without having to spend a whole lot of money? And out of that came Spy Kids and Spy Kids 2, and a franchise that made a lot of money, and it made a lot more money because he didn't have to blow a lot of money to get there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, we see it here in Silicon Valley constantly. There's all these companies that raise way too much money for their own good. It distracts them. It makes them make bad decisions. It makes them spend money on things that are not relevant to the business. And clearly that's not the case with us. And that's a good thing. And we want to keep it that way. And I think we're at the place now where it's safe to start trying to grow a little more aggressively. So that's a good thing. I mean, I think I'm very optimistic on the company because of that. We have a very good developer, very passionate developers that we really appreciate. I'll tell you for sure, like, this is what we try, and Walter is like this too. We every single developer that writes in and says, "I have this issue," or "This isn't working," I'm not exaggerating. Like, I wish we could help every single one. We really do, and we try. It's impossible. There's no way we can do it, but we really try, and we try to keep our developers' interests front and center for everything we do. It's impossible to keep every single one happy, because every single developer has a set of features that they need tomorrow, and every except for some overlap, everyone has a different set of things they need, and even for a bigger company, they still have these issues and bugs and everything. For a smaller company, it's impossible to keep every single one happy. But I think we've done a reasonable job so far, and we're going to try and improve on that going forward.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of support in the forums. There's a lot of community support. I mean, everybody seems to be very eager to share, talk about things, come out to events, stuff like that. So it's that to me, that's the health of the community. It speaks to the health of the community.
Right.
So.
Yeah, we think we have a great community. We really do. We are blown away sometimes. I joined full-time the company full-time almost exactly a year ago. But before that, all of 2011, I was sort of an advisor, and I was helping the guys here with business stuff. And one of the reasons I ended up joining was because over that time when I was an advisor, I was blown away by how passionate developers were about Corona. For every developer that said, "Oh, I wish you did this, and I'm pissed off because you haven't done this or the other," most of the time they'd turn around and they'd say, "Well, no, I really like Corona. I just wish you'd do this, but I really like Corona." But for every one of those guys, there were 3, 4, 5 guys that just flat out love Corona. They just it's an amazing platform. I love it. I'm starting to build my living on it. And that just blew me away. It's not often that companies can put something out there that actually thousands of people around the world start actually depending on. So that's good, and it just brings on some things we have to deal with and grow with. So.
All right. Well, that's a good place to. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. We've talked a lot today about marketing apps, everything from things that you can put into your app, things that you can do before you even start developing your app. Things that you can do from a marketing perspective, either on the App Store or from your own website, building your own fan base. So I mean that's a lot of information today. Thank you, David. That's good. And we're going to go back and break this thing down. Maybe even chop it into segments. Maybe make some segment videos and maybe make a bunch of blog posts out of it because there's a lot of meat here.
That's a great idea. Let me know how I can help.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do.
And before we go, I've got one announcement that I want to make to our Corona Geek community. Beginning spring semester 2013, I'm going to be teaching a class that's aimed for dual enrollment students. So students that are in high school planning on going to college. I'm going to be teaching a class on Corona that assumes you've never programmed before. It's going to be 100% online, and students can sign up for it. We'll post the link and the blog notes that go with the show here, but that is coming up, and I know there's a lot of interest from high school students and not high school students that just have never programmed before but want to make their own apps. So here's going to be a chance to do it for college credit.
Oh, excellent.
Excellent.
Very good. Very good. All right. Well, David, thanks for spending some time with us today, for being in here with us and answering all our questions. I mean, you've been very generous with your time. I mean, it's been an hour that I know that you could have been, chasing down other things. So I appreciate you being with us.
No, thank you guys. This is fantastic what you guys are doing. We really, really appreciate it. So thank you for having me.
All right. So if you will check back later, we'll have the show notes for this. We'll have all the links to everything that we've discussed, and you can join us back here next week on Google Plus, 2 p.m. Central Time. We're going to be right back here talking about mobile development in the Corona SDK. And until then, you can check us out on Facebook.com/Corona Geek. You can also find all the previous Hangouts. You can watch this Hangout with David. You can watch the previous Hangout that we did with Walter Liu. That'll all be out on YouTube.com/Corona Geek. And if you have any questions about anything, you want to talk to us about something, you want to have your app reviewed, you want to submit a piece of code, you want to just general chit chat, you can send an email to questions@coronageek.com, and that'll come directly to me, and I'll make sure that it gets taken care of. All right. So thanks for watching. Thanks for being with us. And David, if you'll hang on to the line just after we sign off here, that'd be great. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.
Take it easy.
Bye.